Welcome to a new episode of the Success Secret podcast. Today, here with me, Natsune. She is the host of the Life Up Education TV, a public speaker, and the author of the book, The Game of Self Domination. What a title! Welcome, Natsune, to the Success Secret. So,
Thank
tell
you.
us, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, perfect. So as you introduced me, my name is Natsune Oki. I'm a speaker at LifeUpEducationTV.com. I also wrote the book, as you saw, The Game of Self-Domination, which we can get into it. But in short summary, I talk about how someone can create mental transformation in 3 different phases, and we can get into it. And I also have this business practice consulting agency in Japan that advises companies in Japan and America to how to launch and expand their business in Japan and America. Awesome. And those are the 3 main things that I do right now.
Awesome. So you are now based in Japan right now?
Yes, I am in Tokyo.
Awesome. Great. What time is it in Tokyo now?
Oh, it's around noon. 2 p.m.
Is it too hot there now with summer starting, or is it like normal weather there?
It is getting there. Today, I think it's about 27 degrees Celsius, something like that.
Cool. So let me ask you, what made you want to start the Life Up Education TV? It's a website and it's also a YouTube channel, right?
Yes, it is an internet show. I started Life Up Education TV because it kind of like show you my background, like a backstory a little bit. So I went to the USA and I studied business and economics. But while I was a student, I actually took some time off to like really gain this, work experience in American environment where entrepreneurship is like definitely encouraged, like, right? Like it feels so different. It feels such a challenging thing to do. And at that time, entrepreneurship was something that I knew that I was interested in, but I was still a student at the time. And so it was a big choice for me that I decided to take some time off to actually gain work experience in competing with like other Americans. Because at that time, I didn't even speak good English. I didn't have a full degree. Like basically, there was no reason for any companies to hire me, right, at that time. But actually, it became one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, because that year was very critical into how I am turning that into a purpose that I live by today, which eventually led me to create Life Up Education TV. So what I'm talking about here is during that year, I was very interested in like working closely with entrepreneurs. Like I wanted to learn how they work. I wanted to learn how they think and everything like that. So I try to place myself as close as people who were doing their own thing, entrepreneurship. And at the time I was in Seattle, and Seattle has this big tech community, like a tech hub for a lot of like small startup companies in tech industry. And I was so inspired by, like, not only they were driven by the money, but they were definitely driven by the possibility of technology, this new thing we created, and how we can really expand our possibility of humanity. So the leadership was talking about that, and I was so inspired. And from that point, I noticed that my interest is about future. My interest always has been about future and also about people. I like understanding business. Like I know that finance is a critical like thing that all business owners have to consider. But what excites me more is about people. So my 2 interests here is future and people. And what am I interested in is creating, like, expanding the possibility of humanity, so possibility of people, but as a macro society. What can I do? I thought about it, and what I came up with is, what am I good at? I'm good at talking to people. I'm good at psychology. I'm good at really like talking to people, right? So that led me to have the media, and then the purpose behind it is so that I can encourage one person's output to be maximum. So together we can have the bigger impact. So together we can have a bigger output as a society.
Cool, awesome.
So
You're thinking about having an impact on the world, whether from you directly or you impacting other people, and so they can impact other people's lives also, right? Yeah.
And my interest is directly drawn into like, so how much can we take this humanity, the possibility of humanity, to like progress of humanity level? Like I wanna contribute to make a progress as a humanity to build a bit better and like bigger future for this species. So that's how I describe it.
Yeah, cool, awesome, great description. Actually, we always need to be better every day. So tell us a little bit about your book, The Game of Self-Domination, right? How did you came up with the title? It's a really powerful title. How did you came up with it, and what's it about? Revolves around what?
Yes. So like I said, my intent, motive behind having that media is about maximizing individuals' performance so that together we can make a bigger impact. That's why I wanted to have this strategy, the tool book that individual person can use. That's why this book is designed to talk about how someone can create mental transformation in 3 different phases. The first phase, I talk about how someone can create a dream. And in this phase, we're going to straight up ignore logical thinking, because logical thinking is what stops you usually, right? You will always have a logical reason.
Even if we are adults, we should keep thinking like we are some kind of children, maybe. We need to have this imagination, yes.
So during this first phase, all we talk about is emotional building. How can we create that momentum? For you to create momentum, I noticed that you need to have 2 things. One is desperation. Desperation in a sense that you are just so sick of your situation anymore. You need it to change. And then another thing you need is inspiration. So the important thing is your inspiration needs to exceed your desperation. So you need to have a little bit of pressure of, I need to like change
something
the situation.
To change, yes. But you need the inspiration side to be bigger, yes.
Yeah, you need to be inspired to want to change something. So that's the first phase. And as you can probably tell from my title, actually my title says the 15 most practical steps to like go through this journey. So I give you different questions and exercises that people can go through in order for them to come to that point. So that's all we do, building emotion in the first phase. Second phase, we talk about perseverance, because first phase is emotion. Now shit's about to go down, right? Like the second phase is how you need to persevere. Like everybody can have a dream, but ideas don't mean anything unless you
have to take action. You cannot just dream about it and it will happen. You have to work for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why like we also talk a little bit about like soft science part of like how affirmation work in terms of psychology, even like quantum physics a little bit, but very soft science. We even mentioned about that. So like having that vision is very important, but in the same time, like you said, perseverance is about action. So shit's about to go down, like I said. So what do we need in this phase is I break it down to majorly 2 things. One thing I talk about is very deep sense of self-awareness. I think that's what people need to come to realize sometimes, is like they give up because they had this dream or idea of what they want, but once they do something about it, they kind of notice that it wasn't something that they actually wanted, right? And you never know unless you do it. So by all means, you're encouraged to do whatever you need to do. But that's where self-awareness really comes in a conversation. Like we need to talk about who we are, what we love to do. And in relation to that, I also explore this concept of like philosophy. In Japanese philosophy, we have this term called ikigai. So I'll just kind of like give you example of what the philosophical this term is talking about. We also explore another concept from Western philosophy about Aristotle saying, what is happiness? Ultimate happiness is virtue activity of the soul. That's what he says. So we're gonna analyze what that means in relation to your self-awareness. And then the second thing we talk about is, actually I talk about 3 things in this phase. The second thing I talk about is like, okay, so now we've been talking about like a lot of philosophical, like a really high level conversation. But here's something I developed as a method. I call it Life Up method, which is very strategic based method that can give you as like actual useful tool that you can use in organizing your daily task or the tasks that lead to your goal, achieving your goal. And this is a scoring system, like project management framework that I developed. It consists of 5 different concepts from business and economics. And coming from business background, like I can bring in that like a business perspective into like how to manage life. And 5 concepts specifically, they cover one from an Italian engineer, the second one is from British economist, the third one is from global consulting firm, the fourth one is from manufacturing company from Japan, car manufacturing company from Japan, and the fifth one from 34th US president. So all of these people had their own like method and theories, and then I kind of like looked at them and then combined into this like one method that you can use. So that's like something very practical you get in that during the second phase. And finally, during the second phase, the last but not least thing that I talk about is connecting to how we talked about how you can use business mindset or the business like a method into managing your life. We're going to talk about how you can use like high sense of emotional intelligence, which you need to navigate through, like, for example, managing business, right? Into how you can manage your life, like emotional experience, going through emotional experience. Because like I said, like for someone to commit to a dream, you're going to face a lot of rejections. You're going to face a lot of failures.
Exactly.
And those are very emotional experiences. So we have to address how you should look at it with logics, not with emotion, with the logics. That way you actually notice, wow, like this is what it actually means. Like it didn't have nothing to do with me actually, right? Like now we switch to logical way of understanding what actually had happened. Now you can focus on solution other than dwelling on that emotional, like a draining energy, right?
Yeah, so, and it drains you down. You won't do anything after that when things drain.
Exactly, because it's emotional.
Yeah.
So we talk about that, and then finally, this is the third phase. We talk about, so all this is great, right? We always definitely want something to strive. We want to grow, right? Like growth is happiness. That's what we want. But in the end of the day, like success is never one destination. So in the third phase, that's what we focus on, is talking about success and happiness. Like all in all, this journey included, like what we've been talking about. After all, like what is happiness to us? Why do we even exist, right? So in the third phase, we really like try to ask deep questions around happiness, like because we tend to think that we need to get somewhere in order for us to be happy, but in reality, happiness is like, I like to call it as like a macro score of life. So you have like good experience, you have bad experience, and then overall, like if your good experience kind of like overwork the negative experience, and even like if you can convert the negative experience into somehow like the positive one overall, like at the macro, then I think that's what we can call happiness still. But we will talk about it in the third phase, and that much whole
but I love things how you made a combination of things, like you talked about, say, the Western or American way with the Japanese way, and you put ideas from other, let's say, manufacturer of cars in Japan, because a lot of people have an idea, for example, regarding Japan, that it's especially after the World War II, right? You went into industrial madness. Japan went into industrial madness. You made everything from watches to cars, if not even more than that. So yeah, the Japanese manufacturing and industry is still a huge thing in the world to be, and the Japanese person, all the world looks at it when someone even says something smart. Are you Japanese? Maybe.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, everything regarding smart things always drives someone to think that are you Japanese? Even if they are Korean or Chinese, are you Japanese?
That's good for me, right?
So let me ask you, speaking, the title of your book is like self-domination. So how can someone stop themselves being weak or scared to do something, or how they can stop themselves to overcome the self-doubt that they have?
Yeah, so actually I forgot to mention, you asked me why I came up with the title, right? And it kind of answers it itself. The reason I wanted to have the game of, like, before the self-domination is because, back to your question, I think the key is you never giving up. Life is like a game. Like, stop taking everything so seriously. It's not that serious. Like, if you fuck up, you can start over anytime again, right? Like, as many time as you need. It does not, like, it takes more than, like, it takes multiple times for you to finally get it. Like,
yeah, it doesn't happen from the first try. You have to keep at it. Yes. By the way, I said the question, do you love the Batman movies?
No, which one? Batman movie?
Any Batman movie.
Yeah,
Cool.
I love Batman.
Do you love the Joker character?
I don't know. I think he's very dark. It's very dark for me to like him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there is a movie dedicated to Joker. Only,
Yeah.
right?
It's very long. I didn't see it. It was very long. I thought, no, I'm not gonna watch that.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I don't know. I mean, maybe that if I were to watch the movie, it will probably like give me more understanding and empathy, like capacity to have the empathy toward Joker. But from knowing what I know right now, it just feels like Joker is so dark for me to like him.
Yeah. So okay, back on track.
Yeah.
Do you talk about goal setting in your book or goal achievement in your book?
Yeah, we do have exercise that but I don't necessarily talk in a very like definitive term. It's more like I give you a framework, and then framework to how you can think of it. So I don't tell you like you need to do this, this and that. It's more like, here's what you can do, and then maybe here's the idea that you can use for you to create your own goal. But yeah, we do definitely talk about it. And I think one thing important we talk about is I encourage people to put themselves in the situation first. And then, because often I think the miss we have is like, we assume that like when we make goals, we only care about the benefit side. And we often like ignore the problem side of the goals, right? Because everybody has good and bad. And for that matter, I'm very careful about directing people on like, try not to make goal based on only the benefits you're getting. And that actually comes back to the talk that I was telling you about, the self-awareness talk. What we talked about with the ultimate happiness, the virtue activity of the soul, is basically to say, you need to pick your battle. It's not necessarily the benefits you should go on based on, but you need to pick the battles that you are up to get to, right?
Because it's a process. It doesn't like click all the time. You have to go around things. You will have some obstacles on the way, right, to reach your goal or whatever that you want to do. So you will have to keep going at it. It's a process. It's not like you said, success and happiness is not like something you reach there and it's done. You keep doing it. You keep searching for more. You keep growing. You don't just draw like a comfort zone for yourself and say, that's it, that's I want to do. You keep doing more and more to grow.
Exactly. So in terms of goal setting, yes, we talk about it. And I think I give people different perspectives to talk about it, to think about it. Because a lot of time, like I said, a lot of books also talk about like, what do you want? Like, how much do you want to make? Blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we also need to think in terms of happiness. So that's what I was very careful of guiding people in the book.
Great. So how can people, let's say, break the the mental blocks they have in their minds? Because a lot of people, for example, said something that they want to do, but before they even start, like you mentioned, they say, I can't do this. So how can we break the mental blocks that people have in their head?
Courage is not the absence of fear, right? Everybody is fearful. I'm afraid of many things. I do feel like scared, right? But I think a lot of leadership, a lot of like someone initiating something is, regardless of the fear, you gain the courage. So a lot of work also needs to come from inside. Like it's something that you're not able to feel it, but you train it. You train to be courageous. You push yourself always to like go into uncomfortable situation, go into scary situation. And I think that's the ultimate thing someone can do.
Yeah. What do you think when someone is feeling like they are behind on whatever they want to do?
Behind?
What when someone feels like they are behind?
Yeah.
What
I think
yeah.
one thing I think a lot about is there's no right answer for anyone, right? There's only what you want, like your answer only. So often when my friends comes to me, for example, something that I mention is like, you can lose them all like tomorrow. Like, you know, one thing, one recent occurrence that I can talk about is Bill Gates. Bill Gates got divorced, right? And everybody has to go through their own journey, right? And I'm not like personally anything against Bill Gates, right? Like shit happens in life. So even if you're a millionaire, even if you're a billionaire, like people still suffer. People still suffer from like the like average, you know, problems that average people face also.
Yeah.
So for me, it's kind of like if your identity or your value is predicated on how much you achieve or how much success you have already, like that'll creates definite vulnerability. Like you have to be kind of indifferent of what your failure or your success, because you can lose them all, or you can go up in the flip side, like anytime, right? Like as long as you don't give up, you put in the work consistently, like you can succeed, and then you can also like whatever you make, you can lose them all tomorrow. Like the market moves, right? Like the market doesn't, the market is not evolved around you. Like the market doesn't care what kind of shit you're going through. Like people are people, and people are gonna do whatever they need to do. So I think the most important thing for anyone to remember is there's no right answer. Like there's no rule in like you have to be at a certain point at a certain age, because ultimately the bottom line is you can lose them all at any time, any age. You have to stay ready if you want to keep succeeding.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned like businesses and stuff like that. So how can someone use the economics and business strategies into life to make their life more efficient? Do you think is that possible?
I think more efficient wise, yes. I did put this like method, right? LifeUp method that I developed myself in it. And then good point that you brought it up, because one thing I wanted to mention is I don't necessarily promote of the method itself, but what I want people to get out of it, extract of it, is the thinking goes behind this method, which really like helps you to be organized up here whenever you think about things. Like for example, business, thinking about today, thinking about money today is an angle that we don't necessarily have in a daily life, right? So in that sense, what this method teaches you to do is to look at whatever the task you have today and think about how much impact this task have on today. versus you can also have like a long-term perspective. So this method can kind of like teaches you how you can think about the risks, the benefit, the time frame, like all these things combined into like life perspective. By just doing it, by just practicing this, you'll naturally be able to see things through the lens of those things. And then when you do that, you become efficient.
Cool. So what create resilience in life? So you need to be resilient in life, because like you said, sometimes people get life gets in the way here, from here and there, and sometimes people get in the way. So what create resilience in life for someone to keep going at whatever? Yeah.
And honestly, I so believe in this thinking of, I would say, accountability. Accountability is what I believe in. Like you can't teach someone who's not willing to learn, right? So I'm so not interested in convincing anyone to be resilient. But I will keep talking the truth, which is you don't mean shit. And like, which is the market moves, which is the world evolves if you're in it or not, right? And like I said, like it takes a lot of investment from your end. You can't expect the world to help you, right? Accountability, back, like once again, back to that accountability talk is like, I'm not interested in convincing people to be motivated. I will just keep talking the truth. And some people are not up for it. That's okay. That's how market works. That's how free competition work. And we need that, right? We need that people too. So I think we should leave it up to natural force. Something I talk about in my book is invisible hand. Invisible hand is an economical concept from Adam Smith, the father of economics. He talks about the economy is at optimal place when there's no government intervention. This is a very like extreme thought, but I kind of like believe that in terms of like mindset a lot. When we look at it from like a macro perspective, not everybody should win. Like not everybody should be the leader, because we're gonna just kill each other. I don't know what would happen. Hopefully that's not the end result, but like everything has place, right? So if there's a leader, there's a follower too.
Yeah.
And I think not like people that come through, even if they are locks at them, if they're meant to be, if that makes sense. And I think that's better system. I think like having that competition in place where individual person has accountability to like grow, and they are like accountable for their own growth, for their own success, for their own happiness. Like they don't have to rely on anyone else. Then I think overall, even mentally, that's more healthier, I think, as a system.
So you mentioned leaders, and you mentioned life rejections. So how anyone in general can deal with rejection, especially if you don't want them to convince them, like I want to motivate you. So if someone rejects someone, or something rejects someone, how can people deal with rejection in general?
Really, the biggest thing I think about is like they don't know you, first of all. But what I was gonna say is like logical thinking, as we were mentioning. Like, and whatever I say now, all falls under the logical thinking behind for getting rejection. For example, I think about social media, right? You can't have a lot of like a lot of followers. Some people's direct translation of it is like, oh, follower counts equal your direct words. Like some myth is around that, right? And first of all, like social media is very tiny thing about your life, right? Like you have so much more to offer, like outside of social media. You have to think about that. You have to also think about products and market fit, which is like you have everybody's interested in something, and you just need to find your customer. You just need to find your target audience, who finds whatever you're offering as interesting.
Mm.
So I think a lot of people kind of like forget to remind themselves that it's a common sense if you think about it, but then we kind of forget it, right? So that's something I would say is just go back to the basic, go back to the logical, like common sense of like what things meant when there's a rejection happen. Like I think another thing I want to add is like, you know, we take it so personally. Rejection is about me, right? But
Yeah.
that's about you taking the world for granted. You're assuming that the world is about you, but the world is never about you. Same thing with social media. Like you can't grow your social media following because people are not getting value out of your contents, for example, right? Or like even rejection, the same thing. Like you didn't get the sales that you wanted. Why? Because that person is not buying you. That person is not paying you money. That person is buying your service, and that service has a value for them. So you need to understand that the rejections is never about you. It's always about, are you meeting the demand of the other person? Like actually it kind of triggers me when like there's this like a meme or I don't know, like social media thing that went around a little bit for a while. And like young people, this is very young person, but they were saying like, if you want me in your life, like you better work, like you better work for me, like you better work to like get me, right? Like so basically this person is saying like I'm valuable for doing nothing. And that's so like that's such an entitlement, right? And I think people who believe in that kind of thought, it's just too entitled to like actually face the reality, which is the world is never about you. You need to be the one who's willing to work. And same thing for dream, right? Like people assume that dream should happen. Like dream doesn't need your work to be required. Like dream doesn't need your investment. Like what the fuck are you talking about? Like if it's your dream, you gotta fucking work for no money for like 5-10 years, and maybe it will happen, maybe it's not, but that's the kind of commitment you need. So I think that's what I think about when it comes to rejection a lot. People need to work for them first.
what one takeaway from this episode would be, Natsune, do you think?
Oh, we talked a lot. I think one takeaway I want to spread is the game, right? As we discussed, maybe I came across like a little bit too aggressive sometimes, but I never have this intention.
I love that you're being yourself and honest and powerful, like like a lioness, like a Japanese lioness.
But so my intention is never to hurt anyone or anything like that. My intention is always to encourage people. That's why I want this episode to end with the message of the game part, which is, you know, it doesn't matter, and like it doesn't matter whatever you did until yesterday. So my final message is, it doesn't matter how much you achieve, or it doesn't matter how much you fucked up until yesterday. What's important is today and forward. So that's
exactly
the game.
awesome.
You need to keep playing. Yeah.
Where can people get in touch with you, Natsune?
Yeah, so my name is Natsune Oki. If you search Natsune Oki, something will pop up. And my website is LifeUpEducationTV, and I am pretty active on social media in the order of YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, I would say. Yeah, that's it. And then you can message me from my website. There's also an email address you can do. Oh, and I have a Facebook group, and you can like drop in any question. It's absolutely free to join. Like nothing is required. You can just join to the group, and then you can ask me any question, and I'll just feature your question in my show, Ask Natsune Show, so people can get in touch with me in that way as well.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today with me on the Success Secret podcast, Natsune.
Thank you very much for having me.